Hello, everyone. As promised, today we're going to be talking about baselining and the performance monitor. Now, if we go to the performance monitor, go to the Start menu, start typing performance monitor, and get it here. There's three parts to the performance monitor. There's the monitor itself. There are data collector sets, which are collections of information, bits of information that we want to try and collect. I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. And then reports, which are actually outcomes of running the performance monitor on data collector sets. So first, let's talk about the performance monitor. Here we see we have a 2-minute block of time, and we have one item that we are measuring right now, and that is the percent processor time. In other words, how much the processor is being used at any given moment across these 2 minutes, the percent of the total processor being used. Okay, so if we let this run for a couple minutes, it's going to graph out this information, whatever the processor time is. If I double click down here, I can get at this particular piece of information, and I can make changes to it. Like say, right now it's red. See, it's red. I can change color. Let's make the color green instead. Apply, and now the graph is green. It's pretty ugly though. Let's go back to red. I can also change the width of this line if I want it to be thicker. Now I have a slightly more defined sustained width, so let's bring that back. I also have the ability to change the style of these lines. So this is a solid line, but if I click on style, I could have different kinds of dotted lines to differentiate between the different graphs, because right now this is just one item. Usually when we perform a monitoring of the performance monitor, we will have multiple items that we're going to be measuring, and changing the color and the style and the width makes them easier to stand out among each other. The last thing here is scale. In other words, what percent of the processor are we using? If I change the scale, let's say to 10, okay, and we apply it. Whoa, well now it's awfully big, because rather than being at the typical 1-to-1, so 1% is 1, 2% is 2, 3% is 3. 1% is now 10, 2% is now 20. I just multiplied everything by 20. If I bring it back down to 1, you'll see what I mean. This is the original graph. Notice, after the 2 minutes is up, it just goes back to the beginning and starts writing over again, because I told it, well I didn't, but it was told to just run for this set period of time, and then it's just going to keep overriding it until we finish. So that's what the performance monitor does. It captures data and displays it as a graph. Now, if you take a look up here and the bar up here, you'll see we have a number of options, a number of variety of things that we can do. Right now, we are set to a line graph. We can change this to different kinds of graphs. See, it says here change graph type. Right now we're at a line graph. I could change this to a histogram or a report. Histogram, if I click on it, is basically a block of, how would I describe this? It's a block showing the amount of processor time versus the last amount, I guess is the best way to put it. Now, if we look up here at the top, you'll notice there's other options here. One of the things we can do is change the type of graph to a histogram or a report. A report actually will just print out, literally, it'll report what it's seeing as opposed to showing it as a graph. Histogram bar will show it as more of a bar graph. And then our line graph gives us the line over time. So different ways that we can look at the same values. We also can add items. These items are called counters. This is what it says down here, counter. So if I want to add something else to the graph, I want to record more than one piece of information, I can go up here and click on plus, and then I'm given all sorts of different counters that I can use. So I'm going to go to logical disk. This is the hard drive. And I'm going to say percent read time. We'll just add that. Why? I don't know. I'm just kind of grabbing something randomly. Come on, let's go. Logical disk. There we go. On the C drive. There. I don't know why it wasn't showing up before. Okay. Let me try this again. Okay, if we go up to the top here, we're going to see there's a number of things that we can do. We can change the way the performance monitor works. We can here actually change the type. If you let me hover over for a second, change graph type. We can change this to a histogram, which is a bar graph of sorts. We can change it to a report where it'll actually just literally report the information. Or we can keep it as our line graph, depending on the information, how we want it to present. Now, I can add more of these things, these items, which we call counters, to the graph, to basically to measure more than one thing. To do that, I can go up here to the plus, to add. It's going to give me a list of all the things that I can add, all the different kinds of counters. And I'm going to go to the logical disk just because I want something to work with. And I'm going to do disk read time on the C drive. So if I do this and I add this instance here, I am now going to add the counter, the disk read time for the C drive. I'll say, okay, let's just add that. And so now I have a new counter. And notice this is green down here. So if I double click here, I now have access to the information for the disk read time. And now, as you can see, it's really low. When it's drawing the green, it's pretty down close to 0. So I'm going to change that scale to 10. Remember when I did this before, it multiplied the value by 10 so we could see it a little bit better. So okay, and well, we're still at 0. But you can see the green line actually measuring there. Yeah, shucks. Okay, and if we look up here at the top, you can see that there are a number of things we can do to the performance monitor to change what's happening here, whether it's changing the way this looks, changing what some of the counters, some of the items, these are called counters, some of the things that we will be measuring. You can go up here and alter this. So if I look here, which is change graph type, for example, I can change this to a histogram bar, a bar graph. I can change it to a report, which actually reports just whatever the current value is, or we can keep it back to our line graph. Now, if I want to add a counter, I can go over here to the plus, and I can get a whole list of all the possible counters that we could have. So let's take a look at network interface, and let's see the bytes received per second for our gigabit connection. So I have gone into network interface, bytes received, and down here selected the gigabit internet connection, add that, and that's what's going to get added to our graph. So I hit add. Now notice it is set to a green color, and it's going to start getting mapped, excuse me, down here. You can see the green line we got going on down here at the bottom. Now, I'm not seeing a whole lot of data, probably because, well, I'm not doing much online. If I were to boost the scale a little bit, see if maybe it helps, and there you go. Now, boosting the scale, whenever something spikes, you're really going to see a difference. If I bring that scale back down to 1, you'll see what I mean. If I bring it back down to 1, well, it's still boosted. I can't win, can I? So if I look up here in the top bar, you'll see different things that I can do to alter the way that the graph is being displayed. I can also add these items. These items are called counters. I can add these more items to my graph to measure more than one thing, because usually we want to measure a number of items at once to get a holistic image of what's happening with our computer. So up here, if I hover over this, you're going to see this is change graph type. If I click down here, I can change this from the line graph to a histogram bar, basically a bar graph. You can see it right there, that shows basically in an instance what the levels, what the values of processor time are. Reports will do the same thing, except it gives me a text report of at one instance, what is the processor time. Notice the line graph gives us this good measurement over time. And this is what we tend to use when we are measuring baselines and just running tests on the performance overall. So if I want to add something down here, I can hit the plus up here and to add another counter to my performance monitor. So as you can see, a huge list of a bunch of different possible counters that we can use. I'm going to go to network interface and do bytes received. And we're going to do bytes received on the Intel gigabit network connection. That's my Ethernet connection that I have in my computer. So I add that, and I now have a counter that's going to count all the instances and the amount of bytes per second received from my internet interface. So, okay, notice it's now going to be green. The scale is really small. Let me bring that scale up a little bit. Let's make it 0.1 instead. Okay. What we may end up seeing now are there we go, see these tiny spikes that are happening? Let me bring that up to 1, actually. That might make it a little easier to see the internet. There we go, seeing the little spikes of internet traffic, internet activity as it happens. Okay, so now you can see we're working on several pieces of information. We've got network information, we have process information. Now, the way this usually works is we are going to have some collection of the 4 different bottleneck types that we were talking about: disk bottleneck, memory, CPU, and network. Here we have CPU and network. We could add a couple of counters for disk and memory and let this run for a few minutes and give us our image, our snapshot, our picture of what our machine looks like when it's running. So that said, let's take a look at some of the data collector sets that we have. If we wanted, we have 2 here. We could actually save this as our own personal data collector set if we wanted to. To do so, I'm clicking on the wrong stuff here. Okay, so this is our performance monitor. Now let's take a look at data collection sets. Data collection sets gives us collections of these counters, basically. We may create our own user-defined ones. We don't have any yet. We can also use some built in by the system. So if we take a look at some of the system diagnostics ones, there are a lot of sets that are specifically designed to check certain problems, certain things that we'd be looking for: memory, motherboard input issues, anti-spyware issues, things like that. There's also, under system performance, really just a couple of them, but one performance counter. So if I double click on this, this is a bunch of different performance things that it will be measuring. Notice processor, disk, memory, networking stuff. So this is an example of a built-in data collector set that Windows would use in order to measure performance. Now, if I wanted to run this, if I wanted to run the system performance counter, I would select it here, and then I would click Start the Data Collector Set up here. Now notice when I do that, it is running. Now notice, and I say it's running because this is grayed out. This is going to run for a set amount of time, however long we've set this for. Notice that I could actually click the stop button here. That would stop the data collector set. If I just let it run, I don't touch it, it's going to finish. It's going to go through, it's going to do its collection of however long. It's going to collect all those data points, and then it's going to present some results for us. So I will just pause here, and then as soon as the data collector set is finished, I'll show you the results. Okay, so the system finished its performance counter run. If I go down to reports and I go to the system and system performance, we see we have a result. We have the results of the run. And so we can go through this report and see what our system looks like. So here we go. Memory had a good amount of utilization, which is normal because this is a virtual machine and it has about 1 gigabyte worth of memory being taken up by the operating system. I only have 2 gigabytes allocated to this machine, so it's pretty high, relatively speaking, but still normal. All the rest are pretty low, which is what we'd expect for a machine that's just sitting here doing nothing. So this is an example of what a baseline report would be. This is what my system is like running baseline, basically idling, not doing anything for a minute worth of time. I can then save this. This isn't going to go anywhere. I can run more of these at a later time. I could do it 6 months from now and see if I get the same type of information. If I get the same results, then I know my machine is running the same. It's running as well as should be expected. But if some of these utilizations are significantly higher, then I know where one of these bottlenecks may be occurring, and then I can take a look and see what's going on, see if I can figure out where the problem is. Now, last thing I want to talk about is what if you want to create your own data collector set? So this one is a little bit advanced, honestly. This is measuring some things that we might not care about. Notice these are all sorts of things about the processes that are going on. That's the processes for a minute. Services, as I expand all this stuff, all the different things that are running. This is a pretty comprehensive list, and the same thing goes for network, all the different types of network stuff that's happening, different things that are going on in memory at a given time. So this is a lot of information. Sometimes you just want a couple of simple measurements to see if things are working the way you expect. So if that's what you want, rather than go through these default, nice but somewhat detailed data collector sets, we can just create our own. And to do that, all we will do is come in here, we right click and select New Data Collector Set. And that brings us up to basically the Create New Data Collector Set wizard. So we can create from a template or manually. It recommends a template, and so do I, honestly. So let's call it My Data Collector Set, for lack of a more imaginative name. Click Next, and we will use the basic template, and you'll see what this does. Click Next. It's going to store it in this location, C drive, performance logs, admin, my data collector set. And then I'm going to run it as a default, as in other words, who is running the data collector set, which is me. We will save and close, and now my data collector set is here. Now, if I want to see what's in it, I right click and I go to Properties, and this tells me about my data collector set. Notice this is just a template right now. So my collector set, if I want to, I may do a number of things. I have tasks that I can do. I have a stop condition when I want it to be done. In other words, after 1 minute. I can schedule when I want it to run. Maybe I want it to run at midnight or a certain time where I'm concerned about what the performance of the machine is. Security allows me to say who has access to this data collector set, how it runs, what the collector set itself has access to, and then directory is where this stuff is being stored. Now, if I get out of this, you can see we have performance counter. Part of my data collector set is the performance counter and configuration. If I open up the performance counter, this is going to tell me what I am actually what I'm going to be checking for. Again, we've got processor stuff here. Here is where I would add all those individual counters. So, for example, if I wanted to set up a data collector set, I would create my new one. I would call it there. I would go to my performance counters. I would add whichever counters I wanted to work with. I would then change. If I wanted it to be more than 1 second at a time or less, I would change that here. When I go to how long I will have this run, that's in the properties of the data collector set, for stop condition. I would set it for 1 or maybe 2 minutes, so now it'll run for 2 minutes. I can schedule it to run at midnight if I want, just adding a schedule time and say, see, I will start at midnight on the given day. Okay, so that's how we would set up a data collector set. And then once it's ready, I will do just what I did down here. I'll select it and I would hit run. It will run for the 2 minutes, collect the information, and then it would generate a report down here in my data collector set reports. Okay, so that's how we're going to go about gathering information and collecting initially a baseline and then testing our system anytime we need to see if we have bottlenecks occurring, if we're worried about performance. And that is it for Baseline and Performance Monitor. We have one more video for this week, and that's going to be focused on backup and recovery.